بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. We celebrate tonight the birth anniversary of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. Therefore, we offer our congratulations to our beloved Imam Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, and to all you brothers and sisters and all the lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Inshallah, I will seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to reflect on some of the teachings of Imam Askari alayhi salam, especially his moral teachings and the way he was trying to educate the Shia. There is a hadith that قال عليه السلام لشيعته. Imam alayhi salam told his followers, his Shia, أوصيكم, I advise you. Of course, the advice of Imam is something that every person who knows the wisdom of Imam, who knows the knowledge of Imam, who knows the position of Imam would take it very seriously. It's like an obligation. We cannot take it like advice of an ordinary person. أوصيكم بتقوى الله والورع في دينكم والاجتهاد لله وصدق الحديث وأداء الأمانة إلى من ائتمنكم من بر أو فاجر وطول السجود وحسن الجوار. There are few important ideas that Imam alayhi salam has mentioned in this hadith, that if we follow, we will have inshallah happiness in this world and the hereafter. The very first thing is taqwa Allah. The Shia are expected to be the most pious people. If you follow the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, who did their best to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to observe Allah's commands, you should also be the best as they tried to be the best and they became the best. If we Shia live in a town like London, and there are many people, we are not true Shia if there is anyone in this town who is more pious than us, who is more honest than us, who is more trustworthy than us. We have hadith which says this about the people, the Shia who live among other people, and that if they are not the best, they are not the true Shia. So we have to observe taqwa. But sometimes people think that taqwa is just something personal. Taqwa is to say your prayer, to fast, to give khums, zakat, to go for hajj. But when it comes to the relation with other people, relation with family, relation with neighbors, relation with colleagues, with those who work for us or those for whom we work, they take it easy, as if taqwa is silent, as if taqwa has nothing to do with this. To clarify and leave no ambiguity, Imam alayhi salam highlighted few important aspects of taqwa. Taqwa includes all these things, but Imam alayhi salam very clearly mentioned few important elements. One is al-wara' fi dinakum. With respect to your religion, you have to be very cautious. How cautious you are about your food? Do you take food from every person? Do you accept to eat meat which comes from every person? If you go to for example, I don't know, a street and someone comes and gives you a cup of water and you don't know that person, you are worried. Maybe this water is poison. Maybe he has bad intent. Maybe he's ill. You don't accept to eat or drink from every hand. Or for example, if you want to do business, if you want to give your money to someone or you want to sell to someone and the person says, I send you money afterwards, you try to be cautious. If you want to marry or if you want to make your son or daughter marry, you try to be cautious. When it comes to religion, we have to be very cautious. Not everyone who has a microphone in his hand or imam on his head can be trusted when it comes to religion. There should be investigation. We should see, where does this person come from? Who supports him? Who backs him up? Does he have recognition from centers of learning, from ulama, from maraj? We have to be very careful. Especially those people that speak very nicely and eloquently, you have to be more careful. Because sometimes the beauty of the words may make you unable to find out the weakness of the arguments. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for example, to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. There are people that when they speak, for example, about worldly life, about social life, about economics, politics, يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ. You are very impressed. He speaks very nicely. Or for example, أن يقولوا تسمع لقولهم. It means that there is power in some people's words and language. But this is not enough. When someone speaks nicely or eloquently, you have to make sure that the ingredient, the ideas that are presented in that beautiful package are good. Like if you have very good chef, very good cook, and gives you very delicious food or very nice looking food, but the ingredient is haram or the ingredient is expired, you don't eat. We have to be very careful when it comes to your religion, whether it is for yourself, for your family, for your children, for your community. Exercise maximum caution. Don't take your religion from everyone, every platform, every media. وَالْإِجْتِهَادِ لِلَّهِ. The third thing Imam Askari alayhi salam says that he expects Shia to observe is al-ijtihad, to make efforts, to do their best, to struggle. But lillah, there are many people who struggle, but they struggle for dunya. They struggle to please their worldly leaders. Al-ijtihad lillah. With laziness, no one can succeed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. There is nothing for man except the result of his efforts. وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى. On the day of judgment, you will see the struggle, the efforts that you have made. Actually, your efforts are more important than your action. How? The efforts are more important than action. Why? Because sometimes a person does something that catches our eye. For example, a person maybe has built 10 mosques. MashaAllah, he has built 10 mosques. But maybe this is only 1% of his money. How much effort he has made? Nothing. Just 1%. Maybe a person has donated only a carpet to the mosque, but this is half of his property. Which one has done more? Which one has made more efforts and more sacrifice? So on the day of judgment, when people see their actions, it means their actions, but with all the parameters which are attached to it. And one parameter is the efforts. So the person who has given 50% of his property or money or possession, even if it is financially much less than the one who has built 10 mosques, on the day of judgment he would see that the reward is greater than that person. Because you would see your efforts. A person struggles to memorize 1 page of the Quran. Another person, just by listening once, memorizes. So he has memorized in a whole Quran. But that poor person whose memory is weak has a struggle to memorize just maybe 1 chapter of the Quran, or 1 para of the Quran. Maybe the reward of this person is more than the reward of the person who has memorized the whole Quran but without any efforts. There are people that they are so powerful in their memory that just listening once or twice they remember. You know the story of that king that he used to tell people that anyone who says any poem that I have not heard, I will give him a great prize. Otherwise, I will punish him. So every person was reciting a poem and he says, I knew this. Even people were reciting poems that they have made themselves and not recited anywhere. And he said, I know this. And he used to say, not only I know this, also my wazir knows this. And my servant also knows this. So after he was reciting the whole poem, then the wazir was reciting the whole poem, then the servant was, so he was proving that this was not new. One person was very clever. He realized that this is not because he knew. he has very good memory. So by listening once, he memorizes. So one person made a poem which was very difficult in its structure. So he was not able to remember by listening once. And because he was not able to read it, then the wazir, who always needed to listen twice, could not recite it. And then the servant who needed to listen 3 times, that also couldn't recite. So then the king, was defeated. So there are people that by listening once or twice, they can remember. The reward is not like the person that has to read, many, many times to remember. أَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, مَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةِ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا. So Imam Askari alayhi salam says, Al-ijtihad lillah. You have to make efforts. It's not easy. وَالصِّدْقِ الْحَدِيثِ. A Shia of Imam Askari alayhi salam, a Shia of Ahlul Bayt, a good Muslim does not tell lies, is truthful, is honest. And it's so obvious that I don't need to emphasize on this. We have many hadiths about this, that one of the signs of Iman is to tell the truth. وَأَدَاءِ الْأَمَانَةِ. To deliver the trust back to the one who has trusted you and entrusted you with this. And it makes no difference whether that person is a good person or bad person. Min barren or fajr. If a person, a mu'min, says, I am traveling, could you please look after my car, my money, my passport, my documents, saying that I'm going to another town, I don't want to take this with me, and I don't want to leave it at home, please look after this. You have to protect it more important than you do for protection of your own property. But what about if a bad person asks you to look after his money or documents or family or whatever? Does it make any difference? No. Even if a person who is a bad person or is a sinful person or is an atheist or whatever, it doesn't make difference who has entrusted you. You have to be trustworthy. You have to deliver back the trust. Barran kana aw fajran. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam used to do. When Rasulullah was going to migrate from Mecca to Medina, 13 years after introduction of Islam to people, 13 years with lots of challenges and conflicts that pagans created. 3 years in the shape of Abi Talib, torturing people. Muslim had to go to Habasha. All those problems. They didn't believe in the Prophet, but still they were 100% sure that they can entrust the Prophet with their trust, with their amana. And Rasulullah, when he was going to Medina, he had to ask Imam Ali alayhi salam to deliver these amanat, this trust, back to the people of Mecca, to the Quraysh. The people that Rasulullah is running away from them, but he says, you have to give this back to them. This is trustworthiness. وَطُولَ السُّجُودِ. In our hadith, great emphasis has been put on sajda, prolonging sajda. According to some hadith, the closest relation with Allah can happen when you are in sajda. That is أَقْرَبُ مَا يَكُونُ الْعَبْدُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ. When you are in sajda, you are in the closest position to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's the time that you are in the most humble situation. You are in the closest situation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In every salat, this is amazing. In every salat, we have maybe 2 rak'ah, 3 rak'ah, 4 rak'ah. Sometimes we have 1 rak'ah like Salatul Watr, but always 2 sajda. Even it is 1 rak'ah, 2 sajda. It is 2 rak'ah, 4 sajda. It is 3 rak'ah, 6 sajdas. Plenty of sajda. Ruku 1. Sajda is double. This shows the power of sajda. We need to do sajda, and not just like that person that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw, that he was just touching the ground and then raising his head, and it was like a bird that is, trying to pick up some food. When we go to sajda, we have to wait. When we are stable, then we say zikr, then we wait, then we raise our head. But this is the wajib. It's good to prolong sajda in salat or during the night, sometime after salat, in ta'aqibat. Sajda is very important. وَحُسْنِ الْجَوَارِ. Imam Askari alayhi salam says, you have to be good neighbors. You have to observe manners of neighborhood. And it's not only when you have a mu'min neighbor, any neighbor. If people have neighbors from different faith, different traditions, they should find that the neighbors who are Shia are the best. They should wish not to lose this neighbor. If a neighbor is very good, you always wish that he remains here. If a neighbor is bad, you say, oh Allah, please, make them move. People should find a Shia neighbor so good, so kind, and so polite, respectful, that not only they don't wish this person moves, they wish that this person remains there and brings other friends here. Or if you have a tenant, if that tenant is a Shia, has to be the best tenant. So the landlord says, I have other house, other properties. If you have friends, relatives, please ask them to come. This is a Shia of Imam Askari alayhi salam. Husnul Jawar, to be good neighbors. There are many things to say about this, but I don't want to take that much of your time. And just mention another hadith and I finish. Inshallah, the words of Imam are enough and I don't need to explain too much. In another hadith, Imam Askari alayhi salam said, it's very beautiful. Inna mudarata a'da'illah min afdal sadaqat al-mar' ala nafsihi wa ikhwaneh. I hope everyone listens to this carefully and understands the significance of this teaching of Imam Askari alayhi salam. Mudarat means that you try to adjust yourself in the way that the other party is behaving. Like, if he turns, you also turn. This is mudarat. It comes from dawr. Or maybe it comes from dara yadri, which means to understand what he does and you adjust. One of the qualities of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was mudaratun nas. Rasulullah was very patient with people. Rasulullah was not a rigid person, was not a person who was imposing his manners on others. When you travel, this is the best example, when you travel. If you have companions that are very rigid, it makes the journey very much difficult. For example, there is a person that says, I can only eat this food. Then you have to go around and find this food. Or he says, I can only sleep in this way or in this time. If someone has all these, restrictions, it makes very life difficult for the people who travel with that person. If you are traveling with people, you have to be very flexible to do mudarat. Or sometimes, you are a partner in business. You have to do mudarat, not to put pressure on your partner in business or in family life. But Islam says this has to be extended to all society members. Mudaratun nas. As much as possible, as much as your principles permit. Principles, of course, have to be safeguarded. But in Islam, we have also great space to act with flexibility within the principles. I call it principled flexibility. Our flexibility is principled, but we are not rigid. There is a hadith which says, mu'min is like water. You can put water in every container and water remains intact. But if there is a piece of wood and people want to put it in different containers, they will cut it and take from it and put it in the container. But water goes to every container but remains intact. Mu'min has to be like this. Keeps his identity, his principles, but shows flexibility. This is mu'min. So, within your principles, you have to do mudarat. You have to try to accommodate what other people need or expect or want, as much as it's a matter of comfort. Try to sacrifice your comfort in order to make other people happy, then you would have an endurable comfort. If a husband always, wants his wife and children, for example, to make him happy, doesn't show flexibility, then this cannot continue. Maybe you can manage like this for a few months, but then afterwards everyone gets angry with you. But if you try to be flexible when you can, then in those areas that you see that you have to exercise leadership, they listen to you. This is very important hadith, that one of the things that leaders need is sa'atus sadr. Alatul ra'asa sa'atus sadr. A leader has to be very patient and has to have very large heart, so that doesn't react, doesn't get angry, doesn't get nervous. When it is needed, then he makes a firm decision and everyone follows. But if for every little thing you say, you have to do this, then people don't listen. So, mudarat is very important. Imam Askari alayhi salam says, with respect to the enemies of Allah, which are also enemies of the believers, enemies of mu'mineen, you have to be careful. Don't create unnecessary tension. Don't provoke them as much as possible. Sometimes they come after you, they want to kill you, then you have to defend yourself. But don't provoke them. إن مداراة أعداء الله من أفضل الصدقة المرء. This is the best sadaqah. You know, we give sadaqah for protection. The best charitable act, the best sadaqah is to try to have peaceful coexistence with the enemies of Allah. This is good sadaqah ala nafsih wa ikhwanih. In this way you protect yourself and you protect your brothers and sisters, your community. If there are people who hate us, who don't even want to see us, we should not provoke them. Because either then they come and kill us or they kill our brothers and sisters. They are already full of hatred. Let us not add any fuel to this fire which exists in the heart of enemies. We have to be very careful. Using nice language, using anything that can cool down the enmity and the hatred which is there, it's a sadaqah. So this is very important. As Allah said to Prophet Musa wa Harun, go to Pharaoh, speak to Pharaoh in a soft language. قُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيَّنَا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Of course, Pharaoh unfortunately didn't appreciate this offer, but still Allah, who knew, Allah knows everything in advance. Allah knows what is going to happen in future, but still Allah says to Musa and Harun, you must go and speak to Pharaoh, so that Allah gives a lesson to me and you, that never lose any opportunity for a very tiny percentage of change and reform should be used. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. So, to sum up what I have said, according to these two hadiths from Imam Askari alayhi salam, whose birth anniversary we celebrate tonight, Imam says that I advise you, Shia, to be pious, to be cautious, especially with respect to your religion, how you understand, how you learn your religion, how you practice your religion. You have to be very careful and cautious to try your best for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-ijtihad lillah, to tell the truth, to deliver the trust back to people, whether they are good or bad. It doesn't make difference who has entrusted you. You have to deliver the trust back. You have to be trustworthy. Try to have long prostration, sajda. Be good neighbors, and try as much as possible to avoid tension with the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is an act of charity for yourself and for your brothers. Very beautiful, wise words from Imam alayhi salam, that I think every person, whether he's a Shia, whether he's a Sunni, he's a Muslim, any person when listens to this appreciates. This is one of the beauties of Ahlul Bayt. They speak to the fitrah of people. If I give this sermon, even in a church, they would appreciate. If I go to a synagogue or a temple and I say these things, they appreciate. Who is against telling the truth, delivering the trust back to people, whether they are good or bad? Being good neighbors, not to provoke. Things that every person appreciates, and inshallah we Shia are expected to be the first people to implement these things. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to follow the beautiful teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and inshallah be able to share these teachings in our words and in our deeds with other people. We ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Zaman Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif, and make our Imam al-Zaman pleased with us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept his du'as for his faraj, for the Shia, for all the oppressed people in the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give shifa and healing to everyone who is ill, especially those that you have in mind. May Allah send His rahmah to all mu'mineen who have passed away, especially those who have rights upon us, our parents, our foreparents, our teachers, our ulama, our maraj, our martyrs. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep our children, our youths, always on the right path. And may Allah make the last moment of our life the best moment of our life. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.